You are using the computer auto. Perfect. It is 10 to more bathroom. More bathroom. How long? See you tomorrow, Dale. All right, what time is it? 5:48. Start with Y. Hmm. Hey. Morning. God, I hope happy. Hey, how are you? We're waiting for the rest of them, but we'll start at 6 o'clock.
Okay.
Suzanne, I think you're in Fayetteville, aren't you?
Yes.
Okay. What school or position?
I actually work in Harnett County. I'm at Overhills High School.
Okay, so high school. And Matthew, Matt, you are where?
I'm a assistant principal in Chapel Hill at an elementary school.
All right. Suzanne, are you a administrator? Suzanne,
I'm having a little bit of trouble with
yeah, you're freezing too. Hey,
I
Hope.
think I'm gonna try getting out of the Zoom and going back in. Trying
Okay.
to fix this, okay?
All right. Hey, Hope, how are you?
I'll be right back.
I am well, thank you. How are you?
Good. Now you're in Fayetteville, I believe.
Yes, sir.
What's your position and what school are you at?
I am an assistant principal at Eastleigh Middle School in Lee County.
In Lee. All right. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
We'll do some introductions when everybody gets on board. We have 10 in the class, so it should be an interesting class. Hey, Levette. Good evening, Levette. Bye, Levette. Here she comes. We have 7 more to join us. Hey, Levette. Can you hear me, Levette? Maybe not. Hey, Angela. Hello, Crystal. Crystal, how do you pronounce your name? Is it Crystal?
Yes.
Okay. It's an unusual spelling.
Oh, yeah, it's original.
All right, we got 5 more to join us.
What?
Is that better, Suzanne?
Yes.
Much better. Four more. All right, I have 6 o'clock, so welcome everybody. I'm so glad. One of the things I really do value is when you're on time, we'll start on time, and we will try to make very good use of our time. This is our first Zoom session, so this is the first time I get to meet you all, although in 2 weekends, I believe, I get to spend almost the whole day Saturday with you and a half a day Sunday, so that should be fun. Let me begin by introducing myself, and then we'll go around and give you a chance to introduce yourself. We have 10 students who are registered in this class, and of course, this is EDLS 700 and EDLS 701. I'll talk a little bit about what 701 is a little bit later on, but right now, welcome again to all of you. And this is the Fayetteville cohort, and I believe, Matt, you may be our person who's most furthest away, although we do have somebody from Florence, but I don't know if there's Robert. He just joined us. Welcome, Robert. So there are altogether 10. So let me talk a little bit about myself, and then I'm going to go on my screen to give you a chance to introduce yourself. My name is Dr. Steve Stone. I have been at Gardner-Webb since August of 2018. So I am very low on the totem pole here. But that does mean I get to have a pick of the classes. And so I selected, and Dr. Laws, who you may all have worked with in the past or may know, asked me to take the 700 course. Even though I am based out of the western part of the state, I will be traveling to you in Fayetteville for at least 3 weekends. A little bit about me. I did retire from Caldwell County Schools in July of 2018. So I've just recently retired from being superintendent of that school district. Caldwell County Schools had 12,000 students, probably about 2,000 staff members, and it was a great experience. I was superintendent there for 12 years. So one of the things that I really hope that you get from this course, other than some really great content, is the opportunity to use me as a resource. The benefit to this is that I have just recently retired, but I have spent 20 years in the superintendency. Some places you may know down east, I was superintendent in Hertford County, which is on the Virginia border, if you're familiar with Ahoskie, Winton, and Murfreesboro. That was my first superintendency. I was there for 4 years. Then I went to Edgecombe County, a little closer to all of you. That's Tarboro, Rocky Mount, and was there for 4 years. And then, of course, spent the last 12 years over here in Caldwell County. Caldwell County is in the foothills of North Carolina, so I kind of moved east to get away from the hurricanes that you guys have. Unfortunately, I moved into the snow, so who knows? And the hurricanes now make their way up this way, too. Prior to that, I was an elementary principal for 7 years. I've been a teacher for 5 years, and I have been in the central office prior to being superintendent, I think, for about 3 or 4 years. So altogether, I've been all over the place. Have all of my career except for 4 years were in South Carolina. The others have always been right here in North Carolina. So I am very comfortable understanding North Carolina law, very comfortable understanding the requirements for principalship, the requirements for central office with North Carolina. Mr. Washington, I'm getting very familiar with the South Carolina standards as well. So hopefully we'll have a great class, and you will have opportunities to pick my brain, and I can certainly be of some service to you. I also know a lot of superintendents, so there's a great chance that I know who yours might be. They change so fast in North Carolina, though, but I won't tell them if you won't tell him either, him or her, about our class, but I certainly won't make those mistakes. But that's me. My specialty, I like school leadership. I'm into that. I'm into research. I like everything to do about principal selections and the training of principals. Anything to do with innovative high schools. So got a lot of opportunities to share some things with you. But the great beauty of this too is that you're the practitioners at this point. I'm no longer a practitioner. I left in July. So I hopefully will pick up a lot from you all as well. So welcome everyone. So that's me. Any questions about me before we get started going around and introducing yourself? And here's what I want you to do. Let me see. I have this in Blackboard. I'm going to share my screen. And all right. Can everyone see my screen? And there's a chat button here, and I don't use it very much, but if you just want to raise your hand or just interrupt me, that's great. I have no problem with that. But when we go around and do our introductions, and we'll do this in some order, just tell us your name, tell us what current position you are in, and you probably need to include your county as well. Tell me what your career goals are in 5 years. This is on Blackboard, so I'm not going to take it away anywhere. You'll have it right here. I want you to have one word to describe you, and I'm going to do this exercise and model it before we get going. And then what would you do if you're not in education? And one fun fact about you that your colleagues are going to love and going to pick on you when we meet in 2 weekends. All right, so let me start. Again, my name is Steve Stone. I go by Steve, so feel free to call me that. My current position, I am an associate professor here at Gardner-Webb University. Prior to that, I was a superintendent. My career goals in 5 years is to be right here in Gardner-Webb or to be a professor. I be a full professor, not an associate. So that's the next step for me, become the full professor. One word to describe me is probably restless. And the reason I use that word is because I'm one of those restless spirits. I'm always looking for something to do. You really are going to get tired of my restlessness at our weekend sessions because I'm always going to be trying to get you to do something else, but that's the word. It's not a negative as much as as much as I'm always looking for another opportunity or I just can't sit still. I have ADHD adult. What would I do if I was not in education? I would probably be in the ministry. I felt a calling for that very early on, not as strong as the one for education, but that would be what I think I would be doing. And one fun fact about me is that I have a pet snake, a boa constrictor named Oscar. I will not be bringing him to the sessions, although he loves to wrap around your neck and go down into your shirt. I promise you I will not be bringing Oscar, but that's one fun fact. All right, who wants to go first? Okay, let me pick first.
I'll go first.
All right.
My name is Matthew Paylor. Currently, I am an assistant principal in Chapel Hill Carborough City Schools. This is my second year. My career goal in 5 years is to be a superintendent or assistant superintendent. One word to describe myself, I would say happy. What will I be doing if I'm not in education? I'll probably be in social work. And one fun fact, I'm an avid basketball lover.
Any particular team or?
Well, Duke is my favorite team, so we lost last night.
Oh, well, I'm glad to say you had a loss last night. Carolina is mine. Sorry, Matt.
Oh, okay.
That means you won't make an A either. I'm sorry. Thank you, Matt.
No, thank you.
Next.
I'll go next.
All right.
Okay, so I am Suzanne Sell. Currently, I am an assistant principal at Overhills High School in Harnett County. It's just over the Cumberland County line where I live. I've been there. This is my second year at Overhills. In 5 years, I hope to be a building level principal. I've worked in a central office before. If I go back, it will probably be later in my career. It wasn't time for me to leave a building yet when I went there. One word to describe me is probably optimistic. I get made fun of a lot at work because when everybody else is kind of down, I'm the one who's going, but look at this side of it. If I weren't in education, strangely enough, I would probably be a personal chef. I love to cook, come home every night and cook wonderful meals.
Do I
And
have a job for you on the weekend?
well, our first face-to-face meeting is on my 23rd wedding anniversary, so
Bring us leftover. Oh,
it'll be okay. One fun fact about me is I'm known by my students as the lady who likes to dance. So every time we have a prom, I study YouTube videos for weeks ahead of time to make sure that I can compete on the dance floor with the students.
awesome.
And I'm a UNC fan. I graduated from there.
Oh, me too. And so, but the cooking's fine. The dancing, we will probably not do any on the weekend.
Okay.
That's okay. All right, who's next?
I'll go next.
Okay. You're muted. You got to undo your mute. There you go.
All right. I'm Craig Washington. I'm principal of Southside Middle School. I've been here at Southside for 13 years. I've got experience at the high school level and elementary level. 3 years at the high school level as an assistant principal and 5 years as a elementary school principal. In terms of the career goal for me, I'm looking forward to the opportunity in the future of being a director or an assistant superintendent in the area of instruction, curriculum instruction, or student services. Also, have a passion for personnel, so any area of that sort is very much an interest for me. And a word that describes me is probably just I'm a real humble person, very laid back. I am very easy to get along with, and in terms of being able to communicate effectively with others, I do a great job in that area. And if I wasn't in education, I'd probably be a lawyer. The reason why I'd probably be a lawyer is I have a passion for helping others out, and I feel like education kind of levels the playing field, but I also feel like from the legal standpoint, you've got to have someone who's a great advocate for you. And so as a principal, I'm a great advocate for the teachers and for the students and the community. Fun fact about me, I play trombone. I'm a trombone player.
Awesome. And you go by Craig instead of Robert?
Yes, I go by Craig.
Okay. And you are in Florence. Are you in the Florence, South Carolina School District?
I am. I'm in Florence School District 1.
One. All right. I believe you are our only South Carolina.
Oh, wow.
So you'll have to make sure I understand everything I need to know about the great state of South Carolina. Welcome, Robert. Glad
Thank
to
you so much.
All right, next.
I'll go next. My name is Lavette McMillan, and I am currently the principal at New Century International Middle School in Cumberland County. Previously, I was the principal at Cumberland International Early College High School, and my administrative career has been in middle school and high school. And I was a teacher in middle school prior to going into administration. Career goals in the next 5 years, I would like to be in central office and upper administration as an associate superintendent or something of the sort, working with people. I am a people person, and relationships are something that really drive me. So student services and those different types of things are things that I'm very interested in. One word that describes me would be determined. When I put my mind to something, I don't stop until I get there. So I think determined describes me well. If I were not in education, it would be like Craig, I would be a lawyer. I always thought I was going to be until I went into education and fell in love. Fun fact about me, yo hablo español y era profesora de español por muchos años antes de ir a la universidad para estar un jefe. So I speak Spanish. That is my fun fact.
That's another thing we won't be doing on the weekend. Unless you're on your own. Well, welcome. All right, who's next?
I'll go next.
All right, Crystal.
So my name is Crystal Hyman. I currently work at Scotland High School. I've been in education for about 10 years. I'm an earth science and biology teacher. My career goals in 5 years are to either be a principal or to be working in the central office, helping retain beginning teachers. One word to describe me would be positive. I always try to find the silver lining in anything and look on the bright side and try not to be a walnut, but rather try to be a marigold. If I were not in education, I'd probably either be a biologist or something still dealing with the science. And one fun fact about me is that I love sneakers, and I have many, 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 many pairs.
Awesome. Awesome. Now, what county, I'm sorry, Crystal, were you in?
Scotland County.
Scotland. All right. All right. Thank you, Crystal. All right. Who's next?
I will go next.
All right, Hope.
So my name is Hope Littlejohn. I am currently an assistant principal in Lee County at Eastleigh Middle School. My career goals in 5 years, I hope to also be a building principal to hopefully elevate to district level as associate superintendent, also working with curriculum and instruction. One word to describe me. I'm evolving. I feel like I am forever changing, always trying something new, and dabbing in different stuff, I guess. What would I be doing if not in education? I do love fashion, all type of fashion, clothing, shoes, jewelry, accessories, etc. So that's my one fun fact and what I would probably be doing because it is a hobby of mine.
All right. Thank you, Hope. Next.
I'll go next.
Okay.
My name is Melody Chalmers, and I'm currently an assistant superintendent of district transformation and strategic initiatives in Cumberland County as well with Hope and with Lavette. Hope used to be in Cumberland County. My career goals in 5 years are to just continue to impact education. The position that I'm in currently, I've actually been in for only 3.5 months. And notice I can still count the days because it's very new to me, an exciting opportunity. One word to describe me, especially in this new position, I would say is busy. Very busy, learning a new position, navigating just new horizons every day. In addition now to being in school and also being engaged, and planning a wedding. So it's been very busy. What would I be doing if not in education? I think like many of us have said, I thought I would have been an attorney. I don't know what it is about attorney paths and then going into education, but I too would have been an attorney if I had chosen a different career path. But I got a job teaching and fell in love with it and decided not to go to law school. And one fun fact for me is I was able to serve as the principal at the same high school where I was a student, a teacher, and an assistant principal. So spent a lot of years in one place. Was able to kind of have a career pathway that went all the way up from being a student to the principal.
All right. Well, I can assure you that busy will be a lot of what we do on the coming weekend. So that's one of the things we will do. No Spanish, no dancing, no cooking, but busy for sure. Thank you. Who else? Angela, have you shared? All right, let's see.
Sorry, I was helping Lakeisha brainstorm. She was trying to turn on her camera. I apologize. Sorry, Keisha, for calling you out. I am Angela Harding. Is my camera on? I don't know.
It is.
I am Angela Harding Whitehead. My current position, I am an instructional coach with Clinton City Schools, and I am also the STEM coordinator. My career goals in 5 years, I hope to be a principal or maybe an assistant superintendent over curriculum instruction, as I've been in that department for the past 2 years. I've been in education now for 10 years. One word to describe me is ambitious. If I was not in education, what would I be doing? I am a minister, so I may be doing something in the ministry as well. Or I think my second call was nursing, so I may have been a nurse. And a fun fact about me, I found it interesting that at 32 years old, I decided to take piano lessons because I just love music. So there you go.
Right. Well, thank you. Lakeisha, how are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Well, we can't see you, but go ahead and tell us your information.
Okay, I sure will. My name is, of course, Lakeisha Phillips. I am an assistant principal at Sampson Middle School in the Clinton City School District. I've been in education for around 24 years now, and I thoroughly enjoy it. My career goals in the next 5 years is I hopefully will be able to, first of all, move on to become a principal. Also, I would like to move into at the central office level to become a director, maybe over student services or in the area of curriculum, because that is my passion. One word to describe me, I think, is tenacious. I work very hard. I have a lot of irons in my fire right now, and I try to make sure I juggle everything and try to give everything my all. A fun fact, I guess I'm kind of echoing what Ms. Chalmers said. I have the privilege of being an assistant principal in a building that I was a middle school student at, also a teacher for several years. And I feel like, of course, some of my teachers, of course, I am now their assistant principals and different things. So I'm feeling like I'm really, really a part of my community and giving back every day. And I think if I were not an administrator right now, I, of course, too, as we heard throughout the group, probably would have been a lawyer. As a matter of fact, my undergrad degree was in political science and pre-law. So I think that because I love the building relationships and I'm a people person, that I think that's something that's going to help me move forward as I become or work to become an educational leader.
Excellent. I'm picking up a trend here that I'm going to have to be very careful with these sessions. Got a couple of lawyers in the making. Sabrina, have you joined us?
I am here. Hello.
All right. How are you? We're
Good,
introducing ourselves.
Oh, well, nice to get to speak with everyone. I just had an interview at central office for a directorship position, so excuse my tardiness.
That's quite all right. Can you see my screen, Sabrina?
I can see you, yes.
Okay. Can you see the screen that I'm sharing? There should be a title called Introductions, and if you just want to kind of share a little bit about yourself.
Okay. I am the associate principal at Hoke County High School. I was recently promoted 4 months ago, and this is a 50-acre campus, so I am on what's called the Gibson side. We have about 2,000 students. I formerly was in Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools for 12 years, Wake County for 3, and now here at Hoke for 4. This is coming up on my 26th year in education. I was originally from Pennsylvania and Penn State undergrad. One word to describe me would be intense is a nice word. I'm very serious and dedicated and driven to provide STEM to the students here in Hoke County High School. If I wasn't in education, I probably would be a physician. I like a lot of science, or I feel like I'm very nurturing and medical and tend to know a lot about medicine. One fun fact about me is that I like to engineer patent design, and I'm interested in developing headgear that doesn't cause cauliflower ear for wrestlers, because my son is a college wrestler. So that's interesting.
All right. Lawyers and doctors, oh my. All right. Well, welcome everybody. As I said, there are 10 of us in the class. So the first thing I want to do is to make sure, just by saying, how many of you attended Gardner-Webb University for your master's degree or for a degree? Did anyone?
No.
Is everyone new to Gardner-Webb University?
No, I did. I just completed my administration license add-on through Gardner-Webb last year.
Okay, who's speaking?
Angela.
Who? Angela? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, so Angela, you are very familiar with Blackboard.
Yes, and TaskStream. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and TaskStream. So excellent. So, but we're going to talk a little bit about that. How about the rest of you? Are you familiar with TaskStream, Blackboard, Zooming?
Yes, I'm familiar with it.
Okay, good. All right. So, but if someone's not, I'm going to spend probably a little bit of time tonight talking about it so we can all kind of bring it up. All right, well, first of all, let me take you back to, and if you put a mute on everybody, mute yourself, then I'll be able to talk. If you have a question, I do have a chat function, but I don't listen to it very much. I would just assume you break in and interrupt me, and let me try to answer the question. All right, so we are in 700 and 701. I will be your instructor. Dr. Laws is sort of the he's the head of the department here, so that's why his name is there. But here is my information. I do have my office hours here in case you are interested in visiting here on the campus of Gardner-Webb. It's about a 4-hour drive for you, so I'm also available for Zoom sessions. I'm available through my email. This is my personal personal cell phone, so please feel free to call me at any time. I do try to go to bed about 10 o'clock at night, so try to between 10 and 7 or 10 and 8 might be not a good time, but if you call me, I will certainly call you right back. Some of the things about the one of the things I'd like for you to do right now, if you have not already, is take 2 minutes to go ahead and click on your enrollment verification activity form. You will need to do it both for 700 and 701. It's a very quick little short process. I'm going to stop for about 2 minutes for you to do that. It's a requirement for Gardner-Webb before we move too much further. So if you will go onto your Blackboard site and complete the enrollment verification activity. Do it for 700 and 701.
Dr. Stone,
Yes.
this is Melody Chalmers. I did complete that already, and I need to run downstairs to the
Go
board
ahead.
education meeting for a presentation, and I'll be back. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Please remember, you got to do it in 701 as well. How long did it take? About 1 minute, 2 minutes? Doesn't take long. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and move on. I know if you have not finished, feel free to go ahead and completely do that. But I do want to spend some time tonight talking about Blackboard and the way the course will be designed. As I said, this course is really designed to be an introductory to the doctorate level program. It is the first course in your doctoral program here at Gardner-Webb University, and we usually have about 95% of the folks who start with us in 700 finish with us in 710, and I'm certainly hoping that I'll see all 10 of you when I teach you in 708, which is policy and analysis in a couple of semesters. So the way the course is designed, first of all, a little bit of information on the Blackboard page. Here's a little bit about the course 700, which is theory development. It is a low residency format. Now, what that means to me and to you is that we have 7 Zoom sessions, and we'll talk about the dates in a moment. The Zoom sessions will start at 6 o'clock. And they will traditionally run anywhere from 2 hours to 2.5 hours. So you can plan on probably getting out about 8:30 or sometimes if we're a little earlier. It may run over sometimes, but that hopefully it doesn't very much. So we have 7 Zoom sessions, and I'll talk about those individually in a moment. We have 3 face-to-face weekends. We are going to meet at Fayetteville Christian School. Does everyone know where that is? I'll send out some directions. That's the weekend following this coming one. That's the 26th and the 27th. We will be meeting there in room 1. We will start at 9 o'clock on Saturday, and we hope to be done before 4, but around 4. We will take an hour for lunch. So at this point, you'll have an opportunity to go wherever you want for lunch. On Sunday, the 27th, we will meet at 9 o'clock, and we will go until 1 o'clock or 1:30. Now, Sunday, you'll need to bring a lunch if you can't hold until about 1:30 or so. So the format will be we start at 9 and we try to finish about 1, but we eat through our lunch, or you can bring lunch. And feel free to do that at any time. I mean, you're adults, and You're adult learners, so you need to take care of those needs as well. So our first Zoom session, our first session will be the 26th, January 27th, Fayetteville Christian School from 9 to 4 on Saturday and from 9 to 1 on Sunday. The way I do the face-to-face sessions, and by the way, the one thing about this course, it is a low residency, but that means that all 7 of the Zoom sessions are required. Now, I am recording the Zoom session, so if you need to slip out for a 30-minute meeting or you join us 30 minutes late, I do expect you to go back and to look at the Zoom session. It will be posted on this week, probably tomorrow. I will post this Zoom video. It's a YouTube video. So if you miss the 30 minutes, and I may talk about some deadlines or some things that have to be done, then feel free to go back. But all of our Zoom sessions will be recorded. The very last Zoom session, April the 30th, will be reserved for me to help you to make sure that you have everything in TaskStream that we need, that we can complete the course as well as all the evidences. Before you move on to the next 700 course, I want to make sure you got everything cleared, and that's how we will probably use the Zoom session 7. We'll talk about that as we get going. But here are first of all, let me pull up the calendar. These are the dates. It's at Fayetteville Christian School. The weekend dates are January 26th, 9 to 4. January 27th, it's actually 9 to 1. I just threw the extra hour in there in case you guys want to stick around and talk to me, but it is 9 to 1. The next face-to-face session is in March the 2nd and March the 3rd. And then the last session face-to-face will be the 13th and the 14th. And again, all those are at Fayetteville Christian School. That's 122 Ireland Drive in Fayetteville. I think it's close for everyone. Matt, you may be the furthest away other than me. Our 7 Zoom sessions, and these all start at 6 o'clock. Generally, we'll go to 8 or 8:30. Our first one is tonight. We will not Zoom again until February. There are 2 in February, 3 in March, and then that last one in April. I try to end the courses early before everything is to be turned in, because you all have to do a evidence, which we'll talk about a little bit later as well. And so by March 26th, I truly, at the end of our 3rd face-to-face weekend, I truly expect you all to have most of your work wrapped up. All right. Now, as far as, and this is all on your Blackboard page, all under, right here under the course content or the course information. There's a bunch of information here. There's a bunch of information here, the overview. There are support services that you can click on, any kind of announcement that I will send to you. We have a new Dean of Education here at the university, and occasionally he will invite you to a roundtable with the Dean. You'll receive announcements about that, so this would be the place to go to look for announcements from Gardner-Webb. It is not the place to look for announcements from me. I will be sending you emails for announcements, and I will be contacting you via Zoom or something. Those are basically reserved for announcements from the university. When you get higher up in your 700 courses, this is where you will be looking for information about dissertation, when those deadlines are, all that kind of information, that graduation information from Gardner-Webb University. We have some information on accessibility, usability, technology requirements. When you start first entering something into TaskStream, you will need that as well. Under program information, I have the handbook for our department, EDLS. I would not think that you would want to spend too much time on it. It is old. It was written in 2014 and has not been updated. And so it's got a lot of not so useful information, but I want you to see it. It's there for you to use as a reference. But again, I wouldn't use too much of it for reference. All right, going on down. Under the course information, of course, here's the syllabus. It talks some of the information about what the learning objectives are. I'll give you an opportunity to click on this as you are exploring. I hope you've already done that. The course text. First of all, let me apologize to you. There are a lot of them. There were 5, but I removed one. The books, and I don't know if you can see them or not, but the first one, the one that I really like that we're going to start talking about, and this is probably reversed to you, but it's called Start With Why, the second one. It's an excellent little book. It's divided into parts instead of chapters. And let me just say this too. There's nothing on any of these books except number 4 that you cannot get a used one and it'd be just as good, as long as the editions are not too far away from the current edition. So Maxwell, you probably know John Maxwell well, but this book was written in 2007, so I imagine there are a lot of used editions out there. I would certainly encourage you, or if you want to rent one online. But this is one of those books that when you get into the central office position or become superintendent, this really is a good book for you to reference often. This would be one that I would encourage you to put on your shelf. The next book, the Leadership Challenge, is a great book. It is, we will be using it toward the end of the course. It is not one that I would recommend that you necessarily go out and buy new to place on your shelf, but if you can find it used, it would be a great book to use. The last book is the Pocket Guide to APA, and as you begin your coursework with Gardner-Webb University, APA is the only version that we accept at Gardner-Webb. When you start turning in papers, even now, you need to start using the APA. Now, the university has not completely gone to the APA version 7 yet, but they will within the next semester. So if you have the APA 6th edition, you're fine, but the 7th edition has a few minor changes to it. That would be the one that I recommend that you get. And again, look for these used. I mean, as long as it's the 6th edition of the APA manual, great. But those are the textbooks that we will be using. Any questions on those? And again, I apologize. I know textbooks are very expensive now, and those probably are not going to be any different. We talked about the calendar. Just to remind you, going through those, you have the dates. And again, all of this is under your information. Remind me, someone, please, to come back to the chapter presentations PowerPoint. I want to talk about that before we get too far. If you are not familiar with Blackboard, or as you begin your 700 course, there are 2 places where things that I need to grade and you need to submit items are. They're on the discussion board here, which you should have access to. And under this, you will see these are assignments. These are pretty much your assignments. Now, let me speak to assignments and items that have to be turned into grading for me. I have, when you turn in something, you're going to get a letter grade, and the highest grade I will be 100. If you get an 80 on something you turn in, an assignment, and with that, the comments, I say, in order to get 100, you need to add this, add that. Add that, send it back, because I have multiple attempts for grades, and I will grade every time you send me something. If you make a 95 and you're not happy with it, and you want to turn it in, make the one suggestion that I've made to your paper, then turn it in. Chances are that'll get you up to 100. The one thing that I ask you to do, though, if you are resubmitting, put whatever the new submission is at the very beginning and put it in red or something that will stand out. That will give me an opportunity as I'm grading your paper not to look for it, but to be able to see it at the very top. And I know you want to incorporate it into the paper. Feel free to do that. But for me, it would be helpful if it's at the top in a different color. And again, this is just in case you don't get that 100. If you get the 100, then do nothing, move on to the next item. But the key is you get multiple attempts. The grade itself, the course itself, when we have collect everything, I will take that number and divide it by 90. If you get a 90, you get an A. I don't give A pluses, A minuses, or anything but A's, B's, and C's. So that's the course. And we'll talk a little bit later on about what that number looks like. Here are the first things that you need to do. Looks like 6 of you, or maybe 9 of you, or 10 of you have already introduced yourself with a short little video. Please do that and post it to this site. That will help me as I begin to put names with faces. Now, the other part about your assignments, there are no due dates to any of these assignments. That means you can knock them out tomorrow, all of them. That's fine with me. Once you turn them in, I will grade them. You can also wait until April the 30th to turn them in. But again, you're going to find yourself bad use of time with that. But don't feel like that. Now, you will have in your course calendar and face-to-face and your dates, I'll say start working on that one. That's just a suggestion to you that you need to. There are no due dates for all these items until April the 30th. So feel free to turn them on. If you want to do assignment 3 instead of assignment 2 this week, just turn them in as you finish them. You have one big project that you're going to have to do in this course, and that's going to be like a 20-page paper and a PowerPoint presentation. That's what you need to save until the last minute to be working on. So I would encourage you to maybe pick out 2 of these discussion board items every week, or the weeks that we don't miss. Go ahead and tackle them, turn them in to me. So in your, I think I'll have to move you for a second. So you have, this is the only, there's only 1 page of discussion board. So here's all the things that you need in discussion board. That's where you put, that's where you go to do homework or graded assignments. When you submit them, they'll come to me, I'll give you a grade. The other place that you go is under course assessments. And under course assessments, we have the big project, which is the organizational development plan, and we will talk about that. I've included a couple of things here. You will be turning it in parts A, parts B, part C, and part D. Also, during the course, you're going to be doing 3 different PowerPoint presentations. You'll be presenting chapters from the books. You will also turn in that final product. These are all drafts up here, A, B, and C. You'll turn in the final OPD, or organizational development plan, which is the A, B, and C are individual little like chapters. The final one will be when you put it all together after all the revisions and all the things that I've suggested. And then there will be a final PowerPoint, which you will be presenting to me and your colleagues at our last face-to-face session. So we'll talk about the timelines for this. So you have 2 places to look for items that you're required. Look under course discussion board or course assessment. And those will be the 2 places where I asked you to put something in for me to grade. All right, please stop me. Just come off mute and say, Steve, can you stop for a minute? Because I'm fine with that. I don't mind, and I prefer you call me Steve. If you want to call me Dr. Stone, fine, but I prefer Steve. All right, then we have course policies, which you should look at some point, course resources. And here, I've got a sample of an OPD, if you want to go ahead and look and see what one actually looks like, as well as a couple of things we're going to do tonight. All right, and then turn it in is when you turn something into TaskStream. Turn it in is the tool that we use here at Gardner Webb for plagiarism. I've also have a folder here for your big project, the operational development plan, and I have not added anything to it yet, but this will be where you go. This is your big project right here. Right here where I've got the marker. That is where you go to look for information about the project or any kind of suggestions I want to give to you so far. All right, is there any questions so far before we go on? Because I want to talk about the weekly content. All right, in the absence of questions. All right, let's talk about tonight. All right, well, let me go back. Under the weekly content, here I have for every one of the sessions where we're going to meet, I have a preliminary draft of what we're going to be doing and what topics we're going to be discussing. So tonight, of course, is our Zoom session 1. Our next big meeting is our face-to-face. So at any point you want to know what we're doing tonight or the date, here's kind of what I'm planning to do. Now, I do not want you to hold me to it, because if something more exciting or interesting comes up and I want to substitute something for that 3rd Zoom session, I'm going to do that. But this is kind of giving you an idea of what we intend to accomplish each and every time that we meet. If you're looking at tonight, Zoom session 1, there's your textbook that will be sort of the focus of what we talk about this week and next week. I'm going to come back to the conceptual framework in just a second. We've already done the introductions. You're going to be working on your video. If you feel like you want to go ahead and put a photo of yourself in Blackboard, feel free to do that. I noticed, Sabrina, you did that. It looked very nice. And then I'm going to model how I want you to do your chapter PowerPoint presentations. There's the gentleman who wrote our textbook. We're going to talk about curriculum design. Now, here's something that does anyone see curriculum development theory here on your Blackboard? So it is there. You just see where it says is not available. Does everybody see this? Can you see it?
Yes, I see it.
Okay. If it's not available, that means we probably will not be using it. All right. Now, so the first face-to-face weekend coming up on the 26th and 27th. By then, there's a couple of things, and all these readings and all that, those are sort of like your homework. Those are right down here in discussion board. So when you see this information up here, that means that there is probably a discussion board question about it. So when you read this essay of Jerktude, there's a discussion board posting that you will need to do for that one. We're going to talk about the standards for North Carolina administrators. We will also talk about the standards for the South Carolina school administrators. We're going to talk about the plan in great detail. We're going to talk about plagiarism. And we have some activities planned. So it goes all the way down. You can kind of get a feel for what we're going to do on the next 2 Zoom sessions, the second face-to-face session, and all of this. So that's the design for that. All right. Any questions? Well, let me go back to, and so whenever you zoom in or whenever we have a session, I'm always going to be going to the weekly content for that week's sessions. So our Zoom session 1, and on this you will have all the things that I really want to cover. Now, before I get started with talking about why and curriculum design, I do want you to see this short little video from Gardner-Webb University, the School of Education, our conceptual framework. As I mentioned, we have a brand new dean. He came to us back in July, Dr. Bull, Prince Bull, and he has worked very hard on making sure that we have some consistency in the School of Education. So let me share this with you. And you have it on yours.
From the School of Education at Gardner-Webb University, I bring you greetings. I am Dr. Stephen Bingham, Professor of Education. In this brief video, I explain for members of our university community an infographic that represents our purpose, how and in what ways we fulfill our purpose, and the intended result. The School of Education integrates a singular organizational identity into and across every course and program. Our identity is comprised of 4 guiding features: mission, vision, conceptual framework, and student learning outcomes. Each feature was the result of sustained democratic engagement by the faculty over the course of 1 year. Our organizational identity is promoted and publicized in all School of Education print and electronic materials. Enlarged, framed copies of our infographic are strategically displayed in areas frequented by our faculty, candidates, and visitors. Shown in slate blue, the first feature of our organizational identity is our mission statement. The School of Education equips candidates to impact communities with innovative, collaborative leadership by applying principles of learning and continuous improvement to foster meaningful intellectual thought, critical analysis, spiritual challenge, and preparation for success within the personal. We recognize that our mission is tantamount to our purpose, our unique reason to exist, not only among independent colleges and universities in North Carolina, but in the world. Our mission statement articulates and underscores our everyday work. It recognizes cognition and research-based principles of learning and commitments of improvement. It recognizes both intellect and deep transcendence as the Canada capacity to make a difference in communities across the whole world. Toward the end that our candidates will emulate our example, we work daily to lead and model innovation and collaboration. Shown in red, the second feature is our conceptual framework, a 3-legged stool articulated by learner, assessment, and knowledge. In the first leg of our stool, we recognize the learner is rightly the focus of collective energy and action, the primary reason for the existence of the university and the school. It is, however, not only the instruction of the learner that we recognize and value, rather we value our relationship with and moral duty toward the learner. We understand the learner to be an adult whose developmental needs and ways of knowing are instructionally supported and challenged. We understand that our relationship is asymmetrical in expertise and experience, but perfectly symmetrical in terms of the ideal mutual affection and responsibility we rightly promote. Our school's second leg supports the notion that learners are not served until and unless we render an assessment, In assessing, we may forget to publicly stated and widely understood goals, the extent to which each candidate has earned, the extent to which matriculants in each course are meeting and have met specified post-student learning outcomes, and the extent to which the program of study is meeting and has met its intent to develop scholar practitioners around a core set of knowledge and skills. Collecting data at each level, student, course, and program, subjected to collegial dialogue, analysis, and interpretation, and committed action to continuously improve instruction and infrastructure and to ensure rigorous and relevant content. The third leg of our school is knowledge. Here, we recognize that knowing rightly precedes doing, and doing right things is a result of knowing right things. We recognize that there are many ways of knowing, and that the foundation of every way of knowing is a result of reason, science, humanism, and progress. For the sake of progress in the world that every candidate teach, we build our programs and courses and our pedagogy using research, promising, and best practice. We disrupt using current resources and technology. We routinely engage in professional development to improve our knowledge and skills and provide opportunities for candidates to demonstrate and create knowledge and skills. Shown in gold, the third feature of our organizational identity is our student learning outcomes. Embedded in these 6 outcomes are our beliefs about and commitments for who and what every matriculating candidate ideally demonstrates. First, we believe candidates should leave our institution as ethical, collaborative leaders. Professionals serve and lead in communities. We intend that our candidates build organizations where leadership is changed from the position of the view to the skilled, collaborative, ethical practice of the mission. Second, we intend that our candidates are evidence-based decision makers. Evidence in the form of publicly verifiable data is the foundation of knowledge. Without evidence, truth is in the eye of the beholder, not the recipe for progress. Third, we require our candidates to have practitioners. Experience is said as a teacher, only reflective on. Only by determining antecedent conditions the hope for becoming an effective practitioner possible. Fourth, we intend that our candidates are innovative integrators of technology. Technology in the service of classroom instruction and school and organizational administration is useful only to the extent that it is appropriately applied to solve problems. Our candidates are willing to integrate technology appropriately, but to use it in ways that's yet to be imagined. Fifth, we believe that candidates should be content knowledge experts. As previously stated, knowing rightly precedes doing that. Candidates ideally leave us with narrative and procedural knowledge useful to their workplace. Sixth and last, we intend that our candidates are culturally competent. Only when the candidate demonstrates both knowledge and skill in experiencing the world through the eyes of other cultures and peoples, effective practice be expected. Shown in orange, the last feature of our organizational identity is our mission statement. The Gardner-Webb University School of Education is a catalyst for positive, sustainable change. A vision is the preferred statement of our organization's future. The statement of not what is possible or probable absent intervention. Rather, it is a statement of what may be. Ironically, the likelihood of achieving the preferred state is to live as if it is already happening. Hence, we posit our vision in the present tense. So, we aspire daily to ignite, energize, and catalyze the human resources around us, recognizing the potential in all living matter. We seek change that is every stakeholder's dream for a positive preferred world, not as one like George Bailey's Hartsville, Paris, and 46 Mill for our life, but the mentor calls the dramatically better knows George lived. And we see change that is positive and sustainable. In other words, we want change that sticks. We hope that you are now better acquainted with the work and core ideology of school education at Gardner-Webb University. Thank you for being part of our community.
Okay, there's a small quiz coming up soon for this one. So, nah, not really. All right. So, let me, before I move on, are there any questions about Blackboard or about the School of Education or about this adventure that you're starting with us at Gardner-Webb University? I promise you, it is a lot of work. but I promise you that by the time you get out of 700, you'll be ready in 701. And by the way, 701 is the companion course to 700. In 700 and 701, we will begin the discussion, the dissertation road with you. So as you start down this route, this is where it really starts, and this is why we need the APA manual around. We're going to start at this point in 700. You might want to start thinking about what project or what research do I want to do. So, you know, it's not important that you have it now. It's not important you know who your committee is. It's not important that you start your research. What's important now is that you begin to zoom in on what is something that I really might want to work on. And it should be something, and my idea of a dissertation should be something that's, number one, meaningful for you. Because if it's just something that's going to sit on a shelf as a book that you've written and you've got those letters in front of your name, it really needs to be rewarding for you. It needs to be something that you want to know the answer to. The best dissertations are also the ones that have practicality for others. It is my hope that somewhere in this dissertation, this pool of 10 of you, there's a dissertation that someone in 2 or 3 counties over may say, well, you know, I remember when Hope did a project on, or did her dissertation on this. We want to implement it over here in this county. So I am truly hoping 2 things, that your dissertation is going to be something that's really powerful and meaning to you, not just work, but also I'm hoping that at some point someone's going to pick it up and say, this is useful. If you have accomplished that, you have not only written a dissertation, but you provided a service to the educational community. Now, that's the ideal. Somewhere between there and the ideal, I expect all of you toward the ideal, but what you really should be doing at this point is thinking about what is something I really want to work on. And don't worry if it changes 5 or 6 times before you get in 706, the 3rd course, because that's when we really need to start hitting, the rubber needs to hit the road. So for the next couple of semesters, really start fine-tuning and thinking. Now, I am your instructor for 700 and 701. We don't have a formal meeting time for 701, but we'll be also doing on that 3rd face-to-face session. That Sunday will probably be devoted to dissertations and what next. So we're going to talk about your dissertation. We're going to talk about what we need. That's why I want you to go ahead and become familiar with the APA style. And we'll do more with that. All right. All right. Well, I have 2 other things to share with you tonight. These are a little bit more lengthy, but the first one has to do with curriculum design. That is an important part of theory. And so if you will bear with me, we're going to go through PowerPoints, which is kind of what the best format for this particular program. And again, please stop me by interrupting if you I'm looking for slideshow. Oh, there it is. Start from the beginning. Okay. Let me move a couple of things. I've got you all over here. All right. Tonight we're going to start our journey in 700 talking about curriculum and program development, the theory behind it. And so I'm going to walk through a short little PowerPoint with you about it. There are curriculum really has 5 kind of distinctive times within the history of curriculum development of the 21st century. And that was, of course, and we won't talk in great details about this. When you start reading in Leadership the Challenge, you will really go into great detail about the curriculum itself. Let me see if I've got the right PowerPoint for this. I may have gotten the wrong one here. I did. I apologize. Okay. There we go. Okay, we're going to talk about the curriculum development and implementation. I'm sorry about the other side. That was the one I used with the last course that I taught. So this one is more in line with 700. Curriculum is certainly not an old field. It's been around forever and a day. There are 6 theorists who really contributed quite a bit to our discussion of curriculum. And you'll be surprised to know up until the mid-1800s, really there wasn't a lot of discussion about curriculum. Of course, public schools really didn't make their debut until in the early 1800s, and that was based on the selection for very few people. So the study of curriculum really didn't get started until the late 1800s, and really was to be studied as a field of research in the 1900s. So prior to the 1918, there was the book called The Curriculum, and that was the beginning of this discussion of curriculum. And today, if you pick up any professional journal, there's always going to be an article or some research about curriculum. How many of you belong to ASCD? Just a raise of hands. All right, ASCD, your association, is really devoted to curriculum development. But there are 6 theorists who really started this discussion of curriculum. You've got Bobbitt, who in 1956, he thought that it would be, he was the father of the curriculum movement, where he said that curriculum has got to be devoted to student needs. You had Charters, who also added that component of putting in the teacher component, realizing that curriculum is great, but you got to have the people who implement the curriculum and who plan the activities. In the 1960s, William Kilpatrick added the new component of making it a child-centered approach to curriculum. So again, the putting a little bit more each time, the curriculum theory has been refined and more has been added to it. Rugg introduced social studies, a big one, and in Hollis introduced the idea that the curriculum should be developed around themes, organized lessons. You all remember Madeline Hunter? Does anyone remember Madeline Hunter? Okay. She did most of her research from Caswell's theories that in order to deliver instruction, you needed to have a format, you needed to include certain things. That was the beginning of the organization of curriculum into a common thing called the lesson plan. And then, of course, the last father of curriculum was Ralph Tyler, who said that we needed to incorporate science. So now we have science and social studies. Curriculum matters, and it should matter because curriculum is what we teach. Curriculum is what's going to impact the students' lives. Curriculum is really, the reason it matters the most is because it should be geared toward the needs of the students. It should be geared toward them and what they can take away from it. Now, unfortunately, over the last 20 years, our curriculum has added probably a 7th component, and that is accountability. Over the last 20 to 30 years, the piece of accountability has pretty much sometimes overshadowed curriculum and sometimes drives the curriculum. I am sure that every one of you has been accused by someone in your community of teaching the test. That's the assessment. We hear that a lot. And my reply to that, if you're not teaching to the test, you really aren't teaching the curriculum. Now, teaching how to take A or answer A versus answer B, maybe that is a test question. But really, if we're going to evaluate you, and we're going to evaluate your students, and by the way, in North Carolina, it is now evaluating you. When we're going to be evaluating how your students do, we have to have a baseline, and we have to know exactly what they all should be taught, how the pace should move along, and what at the end of the course they should be responsible for. Well, that's the curriculum. And so that's why we have curriculum. It is unfortunate that assessments are beginning to drive more and more curriculum. You have teachers in your building who say, I can't do everything I want to cover because I've got to have the kids ready for this test. That's where assessment is driving curriculum. And that's a direction that I don't think any of the founders of the curriculum theory ever thought we would go. But that's a great dissertation project for someone out there, is how assessment is now dictating curriculum, because it does. Think about how much time you spend on reading, how much language arts, and how much time you spend on math, science, and social studies in your own schools. Think about, for those of you in 8th grade or 5th grade in North Carolina, when you have the science test. You spend a little bit more time on science that semester, and you cover a little bit more content in the science areas. All right, so That's why it matters. It matters because that's what we're supposed to be teaching. That's what we're supposed to be helping to get kids to understand. It is also helping them to become lifelong learners, and it gives them an opportunity to know what they need, or us to know what they need. The key elements, kids and students are at the stake at the heart of it. It's got to be all about them. It's about the relationship between the staff and the student as to how they deliver that curriculum. There's got to be educational aims. Excuse me. Excuse me. There are intended learning outcomes. There's an assessment of course content, the mechanisms, the methodology that we get there. The characteristics of the curriculum, it's usually a content-driven, content matter to be taught. It is also used, we also pull upon within the curriculum the experiences that kids encounter and that they bring to the table, they bring to the plate with them. Curriculum is intentional. There is something that you are trying to get at the end of the day. Those are your objectives, your outcomes. Those are planned experiences for your kids. The fourth bullet is something that I don't think we think a lot about, but that is that curriculum is a part of cultural reproduction. Interesting concept. I never thought of it that way, but look at curriculum. Look at particularly our social studies curriculum as the prime example. In social studies, yes, we're studying the wars and we're studying the presidents, but we're also studying the American culture. When you pick up any United States or North Carolina or South Carolina social studies book, you really are getting indoctrinated into the culture of the country and the state. And that's a part of our curriculum. That's a part of public education, cultural reproduction. It is also an opportunity for kids to experience things that they wouldn't normally get to experience, as long as the teacher is helping to guide them toward that experience. I'm not going to spend a lot of time about it because curriculum development, this is what textbook theory about curriculum development is. But let me put my own 2 cents of what I really think curriculum development should be. Now, textbook, this is what, if you pick up the book and you read it, here's what it'll tell you the way the curriculum is developed. Over the last 30 years, this is the real way. It's not in your textbook, it's not on a slide, but here is the real way that curriculum is developed in this country. Any of you heard of Pearson's? Okay. Pearson is a huge, huge monopoly on educational materials. When Pearson develops curriculum, that is what states adopt. And in the state of North Carolina, just like the state of South Carolina, as far as you as a classroom teacher or you as a principal getting to develop curriculum, you don't. The curriculum is sent to you from the state of North Carolina and the state of South Carolina. Now, there are rare exceptions to that. And those rare exceptions may be when there's a unique course to Harnett County or there's a unique course to Chapel Hill. That's when the teachers and the principals and the central office get together and help to develop that curriculum. And in the state of North Carolina, as I'm sure it is in South Carolina, we do have an avenue for curriculum to rise up to the state level. But 95% of the curriculum in North Carolina is pushed down from the state level. And that push down is because companies like Pearson and other educational people who write the books and who do the textbooks and create the test, those are the ones who are driving the curriculum. The state of North Carolina will collaborate with Pearson. Pearson will put together a textbook that's unique for North Carolina, which isn't really that unique. And that's how the curriculum really works. This, what I have on the screen, is the way it used to work. It's the ideal, maybe, or somebody's ideal from the textbook, but it really isn't the reality. But that 5% of the time when we do have the ability to impact curriculum, it's very strong and it's very powerful. And so we want to talk a little bit about that. And there are 4 steps in planning. This is the 5%. If you were called upon to write a curriculum for your county or write a curriculum for your school, and it is possible that within your school district, that if you have 4 or 5 different high schools, you can have a course taught at one high school that was developed at that high school. And when you develop a course, you have to develop, of course, the content, the curriculum, and you also have to develop the assessment. So in that 5%, this is the steps toward the development of curriculum. I doubt very seriously Pearson uses it, but this is what you would use in those 5. First is the planning, and that, to be done well, needs to be initiated, led by teachers. If you have a new course at your high school or your elementary or your middle school or something that has a curriculum to it, then the people who should help write that curriculum and who should put together everything that goes along with that curriculum are your classroom teachers. They're the ones who are with the kids all day. They're the ones who understand that what the kids need. They understand what the actual objective is. Now, the time this really is used the most is in high school, because as we all know, the business community is constantly approaching our Board of Educations or our school systems administrators and saying, you know what, kids need a course in economic literacy or financial literacy. A good school district will go out. Now, there are some out there you can buy, but a good school district will say, well, tell us exactly what it would look like here in Cumberland County. And so as Cumberland County begins to develop its financial literacy course, that's when you really want to have the folks around the table who really understand what needs to be in that curriculum. And I do agree that those business people need to be consulted, but in reality, those teachers are the ones who need to write that curriculum. Run it by the business people, have the business people have some input in it, but teachers know kids, and teachers know how kids learn, teachers know what they need to learn. So that's the planning part, where you sit and you talk about what needs to be in the curriculum. The creation of the curriculum, again, I cannot stress enough that teachers need to be driving this. Even in your building as a principal or assistant principal, if you're developing a new curriculum for your school, teachers need to drive it. Your school improvement team or some other curriculum team, they're the ones who need to be driving the development of curriculum. You are a consultant. You are the facilitator as an administrator. Let the teachers, and the reason why you're there as a facilitator or as a consultant is because you know the law, or you should. You know you can't do this, you can't do that, and you also know that there has to be components to the curriculum. Now, would any of you do a curriculum that you know is going to rile up people in your community? Probably not. The teachers may not know that, but you do. So that's why you still have a stage and you still have a part in the curriculum writing, but it really is best with teachers. So the planning, the creation, the implementation, the implementation, again, who does the implementation? It's teachers. Who checks for fidelity? It's you, the administrator. So again, even in the implementation stage, teachers have to be involved in it. In the reflection stage, this is after you've had the curriculum in place, you've had a couple of semesters with it. This is sort of like that Plan, Do, Study, Act. This is where you go back and you look at the curriculum and you say, it did not accomplish what we thought it was going to do. Or we need to change it, we need to add this, we need to make it better, or we need to delete this. And sometimes the decision is, but you know what? It just didn't pan out. We don't need to do it anymore. So those are the 4 stages. I'm going to skip over the phases. In curriculum implementation, and when you become a building level principal or you become that central office administrator who's in charge of curriculum, you will run into this often. And this will impact the way you think about the curriculum. There's a laissez-faire approach, and that is pretty much a curriculum specialist or the person at the Ed Center or the central office who kind of says, okay, you guys over there at West High School, you want to develop a course, you kind of do what you want with it. There's no control. So the central office kind of backs off as long as you're turning in the grades and it gets into the grading system. That has its ups and downs. It works best in places where the teachers are really embracing it, not where you force it on them. And then, of course, you have the authoritarian, which is where everything is done by the central office or done by the state. This is how 95% of our curriculum comes to us, from the state to an authoritarian model. All right, we'll skip over that. All right, now let's talk about the principal's role in curriculum development. And if you see any errors here, like that that principal should be a capital, I'll catch those next time. The principal's role. Now, we talked about this a little bit earlier, but the teachers are the ones who really are doing that grunt work. The principal is going to be the one who has to implement the curriculum, and also even under the planning and the putting it together, the principal has a role in being kind of that gatekeeper. That's the person who sets some parameters so we don't go outside those parameters and violate any laws. Like if you're trying to teach a course on on something that may be pushing the legal bounds, you need to be careful, of course, with those kinds of things. So the principal's role really is to make sure that the parameters in the planning stage and the putting the content together stage is that you're practicing within those parameters. In the implementation stage, the principal's role pretty much is to make sure that you're doing it with fidelity. This is what we said we wanted to do. So to make sure that your staff is committed, and all staff are committed to that particular curriculum. All right, the principal has some other roles as well, and this is also, not only can it be the principal's role, but it could also be the curriculum specialist. And I heard someone say tonight that they wanted to be a curriculum specialist, or someone is the associate superintendent for curriculum, or will want to be in that position. Well, here's some of the roles that you have to play as well, on not only in the school level, but on the district level. And that is to make sure you're heading toward academic excellence. That's to make sure that you obtain the goal that you set out that you wanted to do. And so the functions of your functions as either the principal as the curriculum leader or as that central office curriculum leader is basically make sure it's aligned to the vision of a quality education, make sure it's within the range of what the state and the district wants you to do. It grows your own school's program of study. It's got a learning. It's based on learning. That's where it should be anyway. Your job is to help determine the nature, the extent of the integration. And by integration, we mean how well does it fit into the science curriculum that other people are teaching in science. Certainly to align the curriculum, and then to monitor and to assist when you redevelop that curriculum or you make it better. Teacher's role, I've already spoken to that. I'll jump over a couple of these. There are Gladihorn, who is probably the most known person to write about curriculum in the school, says that there are different kinds of curriculum. And I want to spend a little time on this because this is so true, and you will discover it. And you may want to consider as you go back in your job tomorrow and over the next couple of days and over the course of this study, is you try to find examples of each one of these kinds of curriculum that's operating. All right, the recommended curriculum is one of those. That's the one that the professionals, whether that be the people down at the state or the people at the Ed Center or the central office, that's the recommended. Those are the ones that have been proposed. They've got research base. On paper, they look wonderful. They are the way to go. There's the written curriculum, and this is what you publish in your curriculum guides. This is what you put out there for people to see. The taught curriculum. This is when that teacher closes the door. This is when that teacher has the 15 students or 25 students, and this is what she actually does when she implements the curriculum. That's the taught curriculum. This is, and you might see that as you go, there are in the different levels of curriculum, you can see where you're moving from, the possibility exists for moving from one which is more ideal to one that's not. So the written curriculum, the one that you put out there for all your parents to see, that this is what we're going to teach in U.S. history, that's your written curriculum. What Steve Stone, when I close that door and I teach U.S. history, it could be so far from what's in the curriculum guide. So the curriculum guide, the written guide, is what I should be teaching. Number 3 is what I actually am teaching. Because in teaching U.S. history, I may have this thing for the Civil War or the Revolutionary War, and may spend a way more time on that than I would on other topics. So taught curriculum is actually what's really taught. And that's why your role as the principal or the supervisor is important, because you need to make sure that the taught curriculum is not too far away from the written curriculum. There's some consistency with it. The supported curriculum is the things that you have support for. Those are those supplementary materials, all that other stuff you have in the classroom. The assessed curriculum is basically what you test. Those are those strands that kind of rise to the front of what's the most important thing that you teach. The learned curriculum, that's what kids actually get from it, and how it is measured, how they show that they have gotten it. And then, of course, the hidden curriculum. The hidden curriculum is the one that, again, going back to the example of me teaching U.S. history, my curriculum may very well be a whole year worth of the Revolutionary War. That's the hidden curriculum. And I may go into topics that aren't in the recommended curriculum. All right? All right. Any questions on the curriculum development, the history of curriculum development, or any of that?
Steve, I want to ask you a question from the standpoint of a former superintendent.
Okay.
My last position, I was actually a curriculum specialist. And so as the state puts down fewer and fewer textbook dollars for districts,
Yes.
and districts start turning toward more online resources, which really have nothing to do with the adopted textbook list, for instance. How big do you see that gap getting between what the state expects the curriculum to be and what's actually being taught in schools?
Well, I honestly think that's part of why our assessments are across the state. We've even leveled out in many places are going down, because I think the assessments, we aren't really teaching the assessments of what we're being assessed. And I think with the given added technologies, and when you're looking outside of Pearson, I'm assuming most of these added supplementary materials online, what you really are is you're moving outside of that monopoly that controls curriculum. And so to your question, I think the answer is there's going to be less and less fidelity to the curriculum, and you're going to get, the assessments are not going to catch up. So I think your assessments are going to be less and less true. They're not going to truly reflect what you are teaching.
Do you know whether the state keeps any data on what districts are using as far as their local curriculum guides, pacing guides, that sort of thing?
No, the state does not. The state doesn't have enough people to keep up with what they're doing down there, honestly. They have been shortchanged. I think they're down 60% of their staff over the last couple of years. My honest assessment of the state of North Carolina's Department of Public Instruction is those folks are working very, very, very hard, the ones that are there, but they're so overwhelmed that districts are becoming more and more independent. When I left Caldwell County 6 months ago, it got to the point that our curriculum people didn't even call the state. We just made decisions on the spot. Because when you call the state, they're not going to call you back because no one's there to answer that question. And because many of the senior people at the State Department of Public Instruction have left, some of your history and your culture down there and your understanding of how things work, it's a lot easier for districts at this point to not involve the state. So to your answer, no, I don't think the state has a clue. And at some point, I think that will change. I think at some point there will be, like most things now are changing, that they'll put they'll put a requirement on the superintendent to verify that the state curriculum is being taught, and that superintendent, like other forms that we evaluate teachers, we have to send in a form every year that says that we've done something, that we verify. And if we don't, or if it's not happening, then the superintendent could be fired or their salary withheld from the state. So I think that's the route they're going to go. But is that going to make fidelity, and is that going to give us really true curriculum being followed, or a standard curriculum? I don't think so. And I do believe that's a good point, and that's a good research question too, is what impact the all of that online. Because again, as long as Pearson is doing 95% of our curriculum and we're following Pearson, we're going to be pretty consistent with Pearson's assessment. But with all the added on things that we're doing, the videos, the alternative assessments or the alternative options that we have in the curriculum, we're moving further and further away from a dependence on one source. And that's going to move us away from assessments because Pearson does our assessment.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. All right. The next big topic we want to look at tonight is I'm going to give you this quick little introduction to start with why, and then I'm going to model how I want you to do your presentations when you start doing chapter presentations. All right. So let's listen to Simon.
How do you explain when others are able to achieve things that seems to defy all of the assumptions? For example, why is Apple so innovative? Year after year after year after year, they're more innovative than all their competition. And yet they're just a computer company. They're just like everyone else. Have the same access to the same talent, the same agencies, the same consultants, the same media. So why is it that they seem to have something different? Why is it that Martin Luther King led the civil rights movement? He wasn't the only man who suffered in the pre-civil rights America, and he certainly wasn't the only great orator of the day. Why him? And why is it that the Wright brothers were able to figure out control-powered manned flight, when there were certainly other teams who were better qualified, better funded, and they didn't achieve powered manned flight. The Wright brothers beat them to it. There's something else at play here. About 3.5 years ago, I made a discovery, and this discovery profoundly changed my view on how I thought the world worked, and it even profoundly changed the way in which I operate in it. As it turns out, there's a pattern. As it turns out, all the great and inspiring leaders and organizations in the world, whether it's Apple or Martin Luther King or the Wright brothers, they all think, act, and communicate the exact same way, and it's the complete opposite to everyone else. All I do is codify it. And it's probably the world's simplest idea. I call it the golden circle. Why, how, what? This little idea explains why some organizations and some leaders are able to inspire where others aren't. Let me define the terms really quickly. Every single person, every single organization on the planet knows what they do 100%. Some know how they do it. What you call your differentiating value proposition or your proprietary process or your USP. But very, very few people know why they do what they do. And by why, I don't need to make a profit. That's a result. It's always a result. By why, I mean what's your purpose, what's your cause, what's your belief. Why does your organization exist? Why do you get out of bed? And why should anyone care? Well, as a result,
Hi, Steve. The sound went away.
Yeah, when he muted his computer, I think it muted ours, the sound.
Sorry about that. Sorry.
That's okay.
and that's how most of us communicate. That's how most marketing is done. That's how most sales is done. And that's how most of us communicate personally. We say what we do. We say how we're different or how we're better. We expect some sort of behavior or purchase or something like that. Here's our new revolver. The best lawyers, the biggest clients we have, we always perform for our clients. Here's our new car. It has great gas mileage. It has leather seats. Buy our car. But it's uninspired. Here's how Apple actually communicates. Everything we do, we believe in challenging the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. The way we challenge the status quo is by making our products beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. Just happen to make great computers. Want to buy one? Totally different, right? You ready to buy a computer? All I did was reverse the order of the information. What it proves to us is that people don't buy what you do. People buy why you do it. People don't buy what you do. They buy why you do it. This explains why every single person in this room is perfectly comfortable buying a computer from Apple. But we're also perfectly comfortable buying an MP3 player from Apple, or a phone from Apple, or a DVR from Apple. But as I said before, Apple's just a computer company. There's nothing that distinguishes them structurally from their competitor. Their competitor are all equally qualified to make all of these products. In fact, they tried. A few years ago, Gateway came out with flat screen TVs. They're eminently qualified to make flat screen TVs. They've been making flat screen monitors for years. We bought one. Dell came out with MP3 players and PDAs. And they make great quality products, and they can make perfectly well-designed products. And nobody bought one. In fact, talking about it now, we can't even imagine buying an MP3 player from Dell. Why would you buy an MP3 player from a computer company? But we do it every day. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. The goal is not to do business with anybody, with everybody who needs what you have. The goal is to do business with people who believe what you believe. Here's the best part. None of what I'm telling you is my opinion. It's all grounded in the tenets of biology, not psychology. Biology. If you look at a cross-section of the human brain, looking from the top down, what you see is the human brain is actually broken into three major components. circle. Our newest brain, our Homo sapien brain, our neocortex, corresponds with the what level. The neocortex is responsible for all of our rational and analytical thought and language. The middle two sections make up our limbic brains, and our limbic brains are responsible for all of our feelings, like trust and loyalty. It's also responsible for all human behavior, all decision making, and it has no capacity for language. In other words, when we communicate from the outside in, yes, people can understand vast amounts of complicated information like features and benefits and facts and figures. It just doesn't drive behavior. When we communicate from the inside out, we're talking directly to the part of the brain that controls behavior, and then we allow people to rationalize it, the tangible things we say and do. This is where gut decisions come from. You know, sometimes you can give somebody all the facts and figures, and you say, I know what all the facts and details say, but it just doesn't feel right. Why would we use that verb? It doesn't feel right. Because the part of the brain that controls decision making doesn't control language. And as we throughout this, I don't know, it just doesn't feel right. Towards something you say, your heart, your soul. Well, I hate to break it to you, other body parts controlling your behavior, all happening here in your brain, the part of the brain that controls decision making and not language. But if you don't know why you do what you do, and people respond to why you do what you do, then how will you ever get people to vote for you or buy something from you, or more importantly, be loyal and want to be a part of what it is that you do? Again, the goal is not just to sell people who need what you have, the goal is to sell people who need what you need. The goal is not just to hire people who need a job, it's to hire people who believe what you believe. I always say that, you know, this if you hire people just because they can do a job, they'll work for your money. But if you hire people who believe what you believe, they work for you. Blood, sweat, and tears. And nowhere else is there a better example of this than with the Wright brothers. Most people don't know about Samuel Pierpont Langley. And back in the early 20th century, the pursuit of powered man flight was like the .com of the day. Everybody was trying it. And Samuel Pierpont Langley had what we assume to be the recipe for success. I mean, even now, you ask people, why did your product or why did your company fail? And people always give you the same permutation, the same three things. Undercapitalized, the wrong people, bad market conditions. It's always the same three things. So let's explore that. Samuel Pierpont Langley was given $50,000 by the War Department to figure out this flying machine. Money was no problem. He held a seat at Harvard and worked at the Smithsonian and was extremely well connected. He knew all the big minds of the day. He hired the best minds, and the market conditions were fantastic. The New York Times followed him around everywhere, and everyone was rooting for Langley. And how come we've never heard of Samuel Pierpont Langley? A few hundred miles away in Ohio, Orville and Wilbur Wright. They had none of what we consider to be the recipe for success. They had no money. They paid for their dream with the proceeds from their bicycle shop. But a single person had a college education like Orville or Wilbur. And the New York Times followed them around nowhere. The difference was Orville and Wilbur were driven by a cause, by a purpose, by a belief. They believed that if they could figure out this flying machine, they'd change the course of the world. Samuel Pierpont Langley was different. He wanted to be rich, and he wanted to be famous. He was in pursuit of the result. He was in pursuit of the riches. And lo and behold, look what happened. The people who believed in the Wright brothers' dream wanted them with blood and sweat and tears. The others just worked for the paycheck. And they tell stories of how every time the Wright brothers went out, they would have to take 5 sets of parts because that's how many times they would crash before they came in for supper. And eventually, December 17th, 1903, the Wright brothers took flight. And no one was there to even experience it. We found out about it a few days later. And further proof that Langley was motivated by the wrong thing. The day the Wright brothers took flight, he quit. He could have said, that's an amazing discovery, guys, and I want to improve upon your technology. But he didn't. He wasn't first. He didn't get rich. He didn't get famous. So he quit. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And if you talk about what you believe, you will attract those who believe you. Well, why is it important to attract those who believe you? Something called the law of diffusion of innovation. first 2.5% of our population are our innovators. The next 13.5% of our population are our early adopters. The next 34% are your early majority, your late majority, and your laggards. The only reason these people buy touch-tone phones is because you can't buy rotary phones anymore. We all sit at various places at various times on the scale. But what the future tells us is that if you want mass market success or mass market acceptance of an idea, you cannot have it until you achieve this tipping point between 15 and 18% market penetration. And then the system tips. And I love asking businesses, what's your conversion on your business? They love to say, oh, it's about 10% proudly. Well, you can ship over 10% of the customers. We all have about 10% who just get it. That's how we describe them, right? That's like that gut feeling, oh, they just get it. How do you find one that just get it before you're doing the critical ones don't get it? So it's this here, this little gap that you have to close, Jeffrey Moore calls it crossing the chasm. Because you see, the early majority will not try something until someone else has tried it first. And these guys, the innovators and the early adopters, they're comfortable making those gut decisions. They're comfortable making those intuitive decisions that are driven by what they believe about the world and not just what product is available. These are the people who stood online for 6 hours to buy an iPhone when they first came out. You couldn't just go to the store the next week and go on the shelf. These are the people who spent $40,000 on flat screen TVs when they first came out, even though the technology was substandard. And by the way, they didn't do it because the technology was so great. They did it for themselves. It's because they wanted to be first. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And what you do proves what you believe. In fact, people will do the things that prove what they believe. The reason that person bought the iPhone in the first 6 hours, stood in line for 6 hours, was because what they believed about the world and how they wanted everybody to see them. They were first. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. So let me give you a famous example, a famous failure and a famous success of the world diffusion innovation. First, the famous failure. It's a commercial example. As we said before a second ago, the recipe for success is money, right people, the right marketing, digital strategy, and success. Look at TiVo. From the time TiVo came out about 8 or 9 years ago to this current day, they are the single highest quality product on the market. Hands down, there is no dispute. They are extremely well funded. Market conditions were fantastic. I mean, you use TiVo as a verb. I deal with someone I need to go. I want a DVR all the time. But TiVo's a commercial failure. They never made money. And when they went IPO, their stock was at about $30 or $40 and plummeted. They're traded above 10. In fact, I don't think it's even traded above 6, except for a couple of spikes. But when you see when TiVo launched their product, they pulled all what they had. They said, we have a product that pauses live TV, skips commercials, rewinds live TV, and memorizes your viewing habits without you even asking. And the cynical majority said, we don't believe you. We don't need it. We don't like it. You're scaring us. What if they had said, if you're the kind of person who likes to have total control over every aspect of your life, boy, do we have a product for you. It pauses live TV, skips commercials, memorizes your viewing habits, etc., etc. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it, and what you do simply serves as proof of what you believe. Now, let me give you a successful example of the world diffusion innovation. Summer of 1963, 250,000 people showed up on quantum computer. They sent out no invitations, and there was no website to check the date. How do you do that? Well, Dr. King wasn't the only man in America who was a great orator. He wasn't the only man in America who suffered in the pre-civil rights America. In fact, some of his ideas were bad, but he had a gift. He didn't go around telling people who needed to change America. He went around telling people to believe. I believe, I believe, I believe, he told people. And people who believed what he took his cause and they made it their own, and they told them. And some of those people created structures that gave the word out to people more. And lo and behold, 250,000 people showed up on the right day, on the right night to hear him speak. How many of them showed up for him? Zero. They showed themselves. It's what they believed about America that got them to travel across the hours to stand in front of them. They black versus white. The answer was white. Dr. King believed there were two types of laws. They're made by a higher authority by man, and the laws that are made by man are consistent with the higher authority. It just so happens the civil rights movement did the perfect thing to help him bring his cause to life. We followed him up here but for ourselves. And by the way, I have plans. Listen to politicians now with their comprehensive 12-point plans and not inspiring anybody. Because there are leaders and there are those who leaders hold a position of power or authority, but those who inspire us, whether they're individuals or organizations, we follow those who lead because we have to, because we want to. We follow those who lead not for them, but for ourselves. And it's those who start with why that have the ability to inspire those around them, or find others who inspire them. Thank you very much.
I know you all are very familiar with the TED Talks. I love them. And so that was great. It's a great introduction to the book. And so let me, and I'm going to talk a little bit about chapter or part 1 of the book tonight. If you've not already gotten the book, it really is a great read. And it's old enough that you ought to be able to get it used, or if you wanted to, or you can get a new copy. But it's got some really great stuff in it. But, misspelled educational there. I would encourage you to go ahead and get the book. But one of the things that we're going to do, and this is in week 2, or where did I put that? Let me find that assignment. I am looking in the, hang on before you go there, but I'm looking in the week to week 2 to see if that's where I put it. It may be in the week to week 3. If you want to go to Zoom session 2, I believe this is where you will have some information that you may want. And here, where did I put that? No, that's not it. Okay. I'm going to have to open it up to you and send it to you a bit later on. It's not there. Okay. In our textbooks, you are each going to be assigned a chapter or a part to read and to present to the class. And so I'm going to model how I want this to look like. And I am sorry, I thought I had the listing, but it will be up tomorrow of the chapters that you have. I am going to assign you to do 3 presentations during this course.
Calendar. If you check in the course calendars, the chapter presentations are there.
Ah, thank you. I knew I had it somewhere, so I got to move you guys. All right, this may be what you want then. Nope, that's not it. Nope. I have not evidently put it up yet, so that is not what you need. I actually need to get rid of that.
It is there because I seen it. I think I'm chapter 5. So you have posted it. I don't know exactly where I found it, but I printed it off. So you have posted it. I just can't remember exactly what tab.
There it is. Here it is. All right, where did I get this from, though? Let me go back and see. All right, so this is no,
It was in the calendar. It was in the calendar place that she mentioned before.
but this is not it, is it?
Yeah, and then once it's gonna load up, and then
I just pulled it up. It's in the course calendar.
All right, so go to the calendar. Thank you all. You're going to have to help me with technology. You guys live this every day. You're natives. I'm sort of the old man in the room. All right, so the way we're going to do this is we're going to have two books that we will each have responsible for, and we've got some other couple assignments. So let me go over this. I am going to present chapter 1 tonight to kind of give you a model of what exactly we want to do. Now, you have an option. You have one of two options when each one of these 3 presentations that you're responsible for. You can either do a PowerPoint, a Prezi, or something for about 15 to 20 minutes, or if you'd like to try, you can do it, and do it well, you can do a TED Talk or something very similar to that, whatever style you want. Either one, but about 15 to 20 minutes. So here are the 2 books that we're going to do. We're going to do Start With Why, and we're going to do the 21 Irrefutable Truths. And so I have taken the class, and I think everyone's on here at least 3 times. I have taken the class to give each one 3 different parts to report out on. And you'll see the calendar, the date for the next Zoom session. We'll have parts 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 from Start With Why. And then on the Zoom session on the 12th, we'll have chapters 1 through 6. So there you have the chapters as well as the dates in which you will be responsible for reporting out. Now, there's a special category in here, Ms. Phillips, that you'll see. And that is, I would like, and there are 4 of you because I wanted to make sure everyone had an opportunity to do 3 of these, but it's for you to do a PowerPoint presentation or a 15 to 20 minute Prezi or whatever you want to do about someone in leadership, dead or alive, that you want to hold up as a model leader and to talk about them. And we can do some back and forth to talk about what this looks like, but it really is for a chance for you to identify some of those model leader or leaders who you believe have a lot to say about leadership. It could be Dr. King, it could be John F. Kennedy, it could be Ronald Reagan, or it could be whomever you hold up to be a leadership. It could be Jesus, whomever, but you'll be asked to do kind of a presentation about why this person is a model and what leadership skills they have that makes them a model for you. All right, so Phillips, you have one of those, and the very last Zoom session, we have 3 scheduled, Washington, Littlejohn, and Self. All right, so this is under, we said that it was under the calendar. If you will pull that up, and if you will go ahead and put that on your calendar for that night, you'll be responsible. Now, at the end of your presentation, and I don't want you to send me anything or put it in discussion board at this point or in course assessment. I want you to hang on to until after we have gone over your PowerPoint presentation. Your classmates and I may ask questions, and we may say, can you add this to the PowerPoint, or this is a piece that we feel like you missed, or we want you to add to. So at the end of your PowerPoint presentation, after you've presented it and you've gone back and you said, you know, maybe there was an error on slide 2, and you've gone back and cleaned it up, at that point, you will enter that presentation here. I think it's under course assessments. Once you have cleaned up your PowerPoint and you're ready for me to give it a grade, you'll just simply go under course assessments and add it to these, and it'll come to me for a grade. All right, so everybody has the calendar, so you'll know we start with these in earnest for our next face-to-face session. Thank you for finding that. I knew it was there somewhere. Need to make it a little easier. So let me kind of show you what did I do with it? Here's how I decided to tackle chapter 1 or part 1 from the Start With Why presentation. I chose to do a PowerPoint. You may choose to do the TED Talk or a Prezi or whatever you choose to do, but this is Start With Why. Okay, the book, of course, by Simon. He is what I would call a professional optimist. He is certainly someone who his whole book, his whole chapter in his whole book, and he's written three other books as well. I've had a chance to read one of them, and this was my first introduction to Simon, my first opportunity to read one of his books, as well as it made me want to pick up one or the other. And on the cover, or on the back page of his book, you'll see the other three books that are there: Find Your Way, Leaders. Someone mute. Can someone please mute? Thank you. And then Together is Better. Often those are the four books that he's put together. I've read Together is Better, and it's a great book, so I would encourage you. But in all four of his books, the one thing that comes out about Simon is that he is an optimist. In his book, he starts off the book, if you haven't seen already, he has got some wonderful quotes. And the first one has to do about leaders. There are those who lead, there are leaders and those who lead. They have a passion and they inspire. So I decided, in looking at the first part of his book, is kind of to tackle each one of the big topics in which he covers. So but now here's a part of this assignment for you in your 15 to 20 minute presentation. The big thing you need to do is to cover the content, because I will be asking you to share that content with all of your classmates. You're going to be the expert on chapter 2 or part 2. That's really your goal, is to share the content. But throughout that presentation, you also need to say and to finish up with, why is this relevant? What lessons, what ahas have I gotten from this chapter? What is something from this chapter that I can use to help me in this profession, or in this particular job that I'm in now, or in the next job that I'm going to be moving into? So 2 parts to that presentation: the facts, and which important things from that chapter that you're going to be the expert on, and then why it's important. So in part 1 of the book, he talks about why start with why, and I thought he did this well under his TED Talk, and there's a whole new concept to me of this concept of why. I know that, his examples he used of Dr. King, of Apple, he used in the Wright brothers, he used those extremely well, and I never really thought of the way in which he organized his thought about starting with why. Starting with why is sort of that internal reason why we do things. And from there, it should inspire how we do things. So as a school leader, and I thought his TED Talk went extremely well to us as school leaders, as a school leader, we need to get a grasp of our why, and we need to start our discussions. We need to start building our school around the why. The simple truths are that we all can learn, and that we all need to learn more. That why is a guide to amplify and to focus on the things that do work. And his inspiration, of course, I thought was extremely well. He used the Wright brothers, Apple, Dr. King. In chapter 1, or part 1, he spends a lot of time talking about the difference between inspiring someone and motivating someone. Inspiration is the why. Inspiration is the why. And that's the sense of why we start with why. He says great leaders start through inspiration. The great leaders, and his prime example is Dr. Martin Luther King. It really wasn't the civil rights movement, or the movement itself may have been at the beginning about Dr. King, but at the end it became about the beliefs, about a purpose, and a whole different thing other than the man. And so it's all about the inspiration. And the reason why Dr. King was such a great leader, John F. Kennedy was, and others, and Apple's a great company, is because they inspire others to want to do and to follow and to be a part of that endeavor. So inspiration gives others that sense. And for inspiration, it really is all about others and the empowerment of others. It's not related to your pay. It's not related to your time on TV or anything like that. It really is about, it's about the internal values that you get from being a part of that particular team. You're inspired. You're not swayed. The person doesn't hold a stick over you and make you do what you are inspired by. Let me ask a question at this point. Can any of you right offhand think of the person, and I'm sure you can, that inspired you to go into education? We all have that story. We all have that person. For me, it was my 11th grade social studies teacher. Absolutely loved her. She was as hard and as tough as you could come, but she inspired me such that I wanted to do something that she was doing. I wanted to be a teacher. And so that's what inspired me to go into education. And it doesn't just have to be in the field of education. Think of who inspires you in the field of religion. Think of who inspires you in all the other parts of your life. So these are the people who really you would do something for, or you want to be like them. And it has nothing to do with some of the external rewards. And it's a creating for the whole, the good for the whole. On the other side is motivation. And motivation, I can motivate you by giving you an A. I can motivate you by passing the course or giving you the opportunity to pass the course. That's not inspiring you to become great leaders. You can be motivated. But in motivation, there's usually a dollar or there's something external that you're trying to get. It's usually money, it's fame, it's that degree, it's something that's tangible. It's going to hang up on your wall or going to go in your pocket. So that's the difference between inspiration and motivation. And the why is inspiration. The other part of motivation is sometimes it's the threat that if you don't do this, you're going to make a B. If you don't do this, you're going to fail the course. So those are the differences between motivation. Now, this is how I am incorporating into this presentation the part about what's important. And you will do this likewise in your presentation. So now it's your turn. So and just speak, who are some of the individuals that exemplified inspiration? They may be people in your life, or they may be just broad names that we would know. I put Dr. Martin Luther King. Who else? Anybody want to add one to that list? People that inspire. Now, remember the difference between inspire and motivate. Inspire is you would go anywhere with these people. You would do anything. Anybody have somebody in your life or somebody in history that inspired?
I'm going to say Mother Teresa.
Oh, that's a good example. Anyone else?
I would say that I have a former superintendent, Randy Bridges, and he's the type of individual who inspires you to take risks. A lot of leaders are afraid to take risks, but he encourages leaders to take risks, and if things don't go well, then you reflect and see what you can do to move forward for students. So he was all about just take a risk, take an opportunity, take a chance. So for me, he inspired me.
I know Dr. Bridges, and he is very inspiring. He's an excellent man.
Absolutely.
You may want to consider Jesus. I'm sure that would be one that all of us would have on our list. It may be Muhammad. It may very well could be Gandhi. I mean, anyone. But it could be someone as well as that minister that at your church. It could be that next teacher next to you, or it could be someone else in your life. So there are a lot of people out there who inspire us, and these are people who we would do anything for. And it's really not about the money. It's not about that. It's about the why. It's about their why. Now, what are some of the companies that exemplify loyal companies and loyal employees? I put down Disney, because I think Disney is probably one that does it extremely well. Who hasn't wanted to go to Disney? What child doesn't want to own Disney or own parts of Disney? What other companies that exemplify this? I can think of one right offhand that I'm pretty sure somebody will get.
I would say Apple.
Apple would be a great one. Yes.
And Amazon.
Amazon. And they are successful because they're all about the why. If you have ever been, and I'm not crazy about their food, but if you've ever been to a Chick-fil-A, they inspire. I mean, they are the biggest popular places you could ever eat. And it's, the food is just like fast food, but they have the best in customer service in general. And they have a mission. They have a why. Anyone else? All right, we'll move on. But I had this slide in here for you to kind of see the intent during your presentation is to engage your classmates. So not only are you presenting the information, but the intent is for you to kind of throw things out there and for you all to kind of join in on that conversation. These are going to be the experts on the chapters. All right, in part one, he talks about a world that doesn't start with why. And why is that? Is because assumptions. And assumptions, you've all heard, don't assume, where that old saying comes from. But that's the reason why that most of the world doesn't start with the why question, because we all make assumptions. We all do it. We make assumptions. Sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong. But most of our behavior is based on the assumptions that we hold, whether they're right or wrong. A lot of the things that we do, a lot of the decisions we make, it's based on faulty information. It's based on something that we assume to be true, whether it's a stereotypical situation or whether it's something that we only know half the facts. Our assumptions are what keep us from starting with why. And history is full of discussions of wrong or decisions that are made with wrong assumptions. Anybody got one?
I have one. This is Angela Harding. Just the assumption that if you make a certain score on an assessment, then you're more qualified than someone else who made a maybe less score on an assessment. I feel like in the education world, we assume that the test score shows the child's potential when it really doesn't.
Very good example.
That's crazy.
The SAT score. Perfect. Any other assumptions?
Yeah, Phyllis left.
Come again. All right, let's move on then. So we develop our assumptions basically, and you know, you don't have to look too far to hear people, not too far in the news if you watch it any at all, to know that we have our politicians who make assumptions. And they base this on a hunch, a gut feeling. You know, how many times have we heard, and I'm not being political, but how many times have we heard the current president say, I feel it in my gut, or I know it in my gut? That's an assumption, not based always on fact. But here's how we develop those assumptions that oftentimes lead us to make bad decisions, that move us away from our why. Rely on a hunch. I probably use that more than most. I just got a hunch that this will work, or I got a hunch that I need to do this. That gut feeling that your people talk about all the time. Sometimes you will have informal polling. You may say, you know, I need to do, or I need to make a decision about something. And the bottom line is you only ask the people that are going to agree with you. Or you, through that informal network, you're asking people who are very similar to you, which kind of will cloud your discussion and your preconceived notions about it. It could be formal polling, it could be through research. So the impact of assumptions, when you make assumptions, of course, is that you make the wrong decisions. And it is, of course, sometimes a minor problem. Sometimes it's a matter of a small correction. Sometimes it's a major problem. It could be life-altering decisions that we make based on those assumptions. When it's right, sometimes it could be just a chance, luck. Sometimes it's also planned. So in order to get better outcomes, some of the things that we often do is we try to go out and get more data. We try to expand the circle of people or organizations in which we're getting data from. Oftentimes, okay, sometimes that's still not the best answer for us, because sometimes even with our assumptions and even with more data, we may get a temporary success, or it may not even work at all. And the reason for that is because we all have preconceived notions. We go into a problem oftentimes, and this is one of the biggest problems with education and curriculum development. We go into with an idea of exactly what it should look like. And therefore, we close out and we don't bring other people to the table who have different notions than we do, or a different opinion. So sometimes we're very selective in who we bring around the table. We bring around the people who we think are going to give us what we want. And oftentimes we've already, and this you'll find with a lot of the leaders, sometimes, hopefully not many of the leaders you have to work with, but sometimes they will even come in with the answer. And your job is to help them get to bring the research or help them move toward justifying the answer. Sometimes we don't examine the problem, or we make a short-term correction instead of using the pre-planning. Again, we can build how we improve. We can build upon our decisions based on the original intention. That means we just basically say, we modify it when it doesn't seem, the original doesn't seem to work. We continue to modify it and make the better decisions. Carrots and sticks, he spends a lot of time talking about carrots and sticks. He equates it to manipulation and inspiration. He goes into the business model quite a bit, that most companies are nowadays use the carrots and sticks. The school systems, which is the question that I want to pose to you, is how much do we use manipulation versus inspiration in the school system? Do we use a lot of carrots and sticks? And particularly, I want to ask the question, keeping in mind who you work for and the fact that you've stayed in your school system for a period of time, why have you stayed there? And you don't have to answer. I hope it's the why. I hope it's that internalized reason for, this is really the why of why I am now in the current job, or why I want the next job. And it's not Cumberland County pays me, you know, I've got a little status here in the community, those kinds of things. And the other question is, and this is a very important one that I hope will get to the heart of why, is if you were to ask people, why do they send them to your school? That's the why of your school. That's the mission and the vision of your school. And as a school leader, or as a central office leader, and as a superintendent, that's a question you're going to have to be asking yourself all the time. Why do people send their children to your school district? That's the why of your district. That's the why of your leadership as a principal. Because if they're sending them, because what you don't want is because they're sending them to you because they don't have any other options. Because they do have other options. They have charter schools, they have private schools, they have the online, they have virtual. I mean, they have so many different options. And as those options multiply, if we're not about having a good answer for the why, then we're going to lose more and more students who don't come to our schools. The business model, some of the carrots and sticks, of course, he spends a lot of time talking about. They do, and this is the Walmart model. They do price, they do rollback, they have sales, they have fear tactics in their advertisements. You know, you've got to have this product or your breath will stink. You've got to have this product, something that will make you in some way have a fear, real or perceived. There's promotions, incentives, cashback, 2-for-1, rebates. This is the business model of manipulation. It is not the business model of why. Now, in a personal model, the why has to do with our aspirations, promising something. The carrot and sticks has to do with our aspirations, where we promise people something, where we work on their insecurities. It's very short-lived, or we rely on peer pressure for them to belong to the in group, or they, because of celebrities or pressure, or if it's a novelty or an innovation. All of these are transactions. The business model is based on transactions, which is the manipulation model. The loyalty model is the why. This is the why people stick with your company. In a transition model, yes, you may sell it for half price, but it's a one-time sale, and people don't associate you with that need, long-term need, and it works well for that. But when you have the why model, the loyalty model, you would want to have those in a business. You want to have those multiple interactions. Manipulations don't work, and it helps you in the long term with peace of mind. All right. My last slide, I think, is about reflections from the chapter. And again, this is something I want you to model in your particular PowerPoint or TED Talks. So the reflections from the first chapter for me are simple for my professional and my personal life, is that you really got to understand where your why is. It's a difficult concept to really kind of understand just by reading the book. And it's going to be something that you're going to be, hopefully will be developing over time. And I can tell you, I have a vague idea what my why is, but I'm really not exactly sure what completely it is. And so over time, I hope to be developing that. But you've got to think a lot about, in a why, just in your decision, is where is it coming from? Is it coming from that why, or is it coming from a different place? Or is it coming from a need to manipulate or a need to inspire? Involve others in the decision making, involve different kinds of people. Don't always go for those who are going to be yes people or tell you exactly what you want. Be flexible, be watchful, always have the ability to understand the why, and that why is like a moving target. It's something that develops and continues. It's a fluid target, something that continues to develop, and to move on. And if you get defeat, move on, accept blame, move on, learn from it, and then get up and try again. All right, loyalty, very important when you become that principal or you become that superintendent of your school district. All right, that's my PowerPoint. That's my 15 to 20-minute presentation on part 1 of the Start With Why book. Yours is going to be a lot better. It's going to be a lot more interesting, I hope. I hope that we'll have a lot more interaction as you develop the kinds of questions and the things that you want your classmates to interact with you on. All right, let me get back to Blackboard. All right, chapter assignments, those you have here under, nope, it was up under calendar, wasn't it? It was under calendar. I do wonder why I put it there. So any questions on your assignment or what's expected, what the expectations might be? Any questions on what the model leader should look like? Ms. Phillips, you got any questions on that?
No, sir, I think I'm okay.
All right, you got a leader or two picked out already?
I'm thinking of a few.
All right, I'm looking forward to it. All right, you can use PowerPoint, Prezi, anything you want to do, TED Talk, it's all up to you, but plan on about 15 to 20-minute session. Let me go back and talk a little bit more about what's coming up, and then I am done unless you have questions for me. Next week after next, January 26th, 27th, we're going to be meeting at the Fayetteville Christian School. So try to be there at 9. I do want to talk of some logistics with you. For the very first session, there'll be some getting to know each other, and we're going to talk extensively about the organizational development plan. I want you to go ahead and start thinking about that. We're also going to talk about the dissertation process. So that's kind of what we're going to do. So on the Saturday the 9th at 9 o'clock on the 26th, traditionally, if you would like to do this, make sure you're there by 9. The building should be open by 8:30 if you want to get there a little early. Make sure you bring your laptops or some device, because I'll ask you to pull up your Blackboard. They have Wi-Fi there. We'll be using that extensively. If you'd like to bring something to eat for breakfast, as far as eating and going to the bathroom and those kinds of things, feel free. I mean, that's going to the bathroom, of course you have to, but if you want to bring your breakfast and all that, it's feel free to eat during class. That will not offend me at all, as long as you're there by 9, so we can start on time. And I promise you, we will be very mindful of your time spent on the class. We'll try to make it very useful for you. Anybody have any questions? So our next time to meet face-to-face will be the 26th and the 27th. Now, what do you need to have prepared before then? If you want to go ahead and go back to discussion board to look at some of the assignments that you're going to have to do, there are a couple of things. If you want to get started on a couple of these, I would not, if you want to do them all, that's fine, but I would certainly encourage you to go ahead and at least try to knock out 1 or 2 of these things in discussion board. There's nothing in course assessments for you to do yet. That will come a little later, because that's mostly about your PowerPoints and your presentations, as well as your OPD. Yeah, that's all presentations and OPD. So everything that you need to be doing other than reading the text is right here in discussion board. Feel free to go knock out as many as you want. Go ahead and do that introduction to yourself. I'd like to have those and see those before we meet for the next week. All right, that is it for me. Anybody want to ask, or anything about the format of the class, or anything about the next time we meet, or anything in general?
I do have just one question. Did you say that you want everything mostly wrapped up? Was that by the March 26th date?
As far as the OPD or all of this, you know, I'd operate this only is graded by me. The thing that goes to TaskStream, which is your artifact, the thing that goes to the state of North Carolina for certification, that's due, the last date I think I can turn that in is May 1. That's the big OPD. So we'll talk about that, but I would really want you to have it done by the 26th. And so we'll spend some time, the first face-to-face, we're going to spend a lot of time talking about it. I'm going to give you a guide about what each section should look like. And by the second face-to-face, you should probably have A and B knocked off and probably most of the way through C. But we'll talk about it extensively. Don't go over, you know, if you want to go in and look at, I think there's some examples. I forgot where I put them, but in face-to-face 2 maybe, there are some examples. Well, that's the rubric. Must be in week 3. But there are some examples of these that have been turned in. Let me see where I put that. Does anybody know where I put it? Huh. Oh, I know where I put it. Right here. I believe OPD. Nope, I did not. But I will put some examples for you there. I thought I already had them. I'll find them and put them in a common place for you. Right now, just start on a couple of those discussion board things. We will talk extensively about deadlines for OPD on the first face-to-face and guides. Any questions for me? All right. Well, we will see you on the 26th. Feel free to email me or call me if you have any questions or anything about the presentations, but we'll see you on the 26th. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night. Have a good week.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Take care.